It's time for Screen Junkies Movie Fights.
What's going on, everybody? We are here. This is Movie Fights Live. Hoot, hoot. This is not Percival. Percival is in rehab. It's Hollywood, and we're celebrating Hollywood. We all just watched the Oscars. Did you watch the Oscars? This show will make a lot more sense if you did.
Or
if not, just go along for the ride. We got an awesome group of our favorite Screen Junkies and fandom folks to break down the most glamorous night in Hollywood. Let's meet who our combatants will be. First, he's the head writer here, writer of Honest Trailers and many other enjoyable, funny things. Spencer Gilbert.
Hello, Hal.
What's going on, my man?
Not much. You just watched the show.
Yeah, I mean, can you get over the glamour?
Oh, the glitz, the glam. I don't know which I like more.
I mean, maybe that'll be one of the questions. What's better, the glitz or the glam?
I can't choose.
We shall see. You know her, you love her. She's the head of creative development here. You know her from all over SJU and some really wonderful, glamorous hair.
Oh, thank you.
ROTH CORNET, welcome to the party.
I dyed my hair just for tonight, just for just to match the glamour of Hollywood.
I love it.
Looking good, as golden as Oscar himself.
An homage to Eminem.
In honor of M.
And, how are you going to do a movie fights without the movie fights champion himself, Mr. Dan MURRELL?
Hello,
Dan,
Hal.
welcome
How
to
are
the
you?
party, pal.
I love the Oscars. I love movie fights. I love the Grouchies, but I love not having to stay up all night more.
Yes. No Grouchies because the next morning everybody was extra grouchy and Dan would stay up editing all night long. So this is a happy medium right here. And I think we're all talking about, we grew up loving and watching the Oscars, so it's kind of a tradition here. It's nice to break it down, watch it together. And our movie fights about the Oscars is going to be decided by a terrible twosome, London Calling.
Yeah, we're not terrible. We're
no, in a good way. A fearsome twosome.
I am very terrifying.
Yes. Lon Harris, what's going on, brother?
The stars are out tonight. It's Hollywood's biggest night, and I'm excited to be here.
Yes,
George
indeed.
Pinocchio over there.
Danielle Radford, are you still basking in the glow of Hollywood's pat on the back sesh?
There were woods, they were holly. It was very exciting. I liked the show. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
It was fine.
I got to watch it with my friends.
Yay!
Good stuff. So we got Lon on the facts. Danielle, is there a chat going on? Will you be chiming in?
You know there's a chat going on. And y'all, we're going to be doing polls again.
Yes.
So everyone who's got any questions about that, there should be some descriptions on how that's going to work down below, or you can ping us in the chat. There will be. Or you can ping us in the chat, and we can tell you how that's going to work. But essentially, after everyone's given their initial arguments, the polls will go up. Vote for your favorite argument. It's about the arguments. It's not about necessarily which movie or whatever you like better. And then that will be our tiebreaker vote in the case that we need a tiebreaker. And then if that doesn't help, I have to vote. So help me. Be diligent.
Yes. And thank you, Ryan O'Toole in the booth, holding it down, making it happen. Appreciate you, man. So we are going to have 5 regular round questions, and then we'll go to the speed round. The top 2 combatants scoring will head to the speed round. And the first person to answer to get 5 points. The first person to get 5 points will emerge victorious. If someone could just pitch a shutout and just take it, and we won't go to the speed round, but that is a rare occurrence. You know what?
Happy guys.
Let's drop that sick ass package.
Prepare to die. Ladies and gentlemen. No.
It's main event time.
Finish him!
Yes!
Thank you, Thor. All right. Let's do it. Question number 1. Ooh, this is a biggie. Let's start. You know what? They saved the big one to the end in the Oscars. We're starting with the big one. What movie should have won Best Picture? You guys, Parasite won. But we're asking what should have won. And we'll start with player number 1. Spencer Gilbert.
All right, well, in my position as the Academy, I think the Oscar for Best Picture should have gone to Joker stuff, you guys. We should have been doing more Joker stuff tonight. It got 11 nominations, and I think for me, this is about respect. It's about respect. Because nobody else in that room would still have a job or still have a movie in theaters if it weren't for comic book movies. Sorry, Scorsese, it's time to get a little respect. They are paying the bill for all of these indie darlings and foreign films and yada, yada, yada that they are so precious about. They owe it all to the Batmans of the world, to the MCUs of the world, and this one is a Oscar caliber comic book movie. They took something like the Joker, the Clown Prince of Crime, these defacing stuff with Prince playing in the background, and they made it into a absolute knockout class war, fantastically acted mental illness exploration. It was open to interpretation. It was about so many different themes. It had the best actor as was recognized. It had the best score as was recognized. It was a cohesive vision, and it put comic book movies to their place at the top of the mountain that all of Hollywood needs to bow down to because it pays the bills, damn it.
Oh boy, is it just me or is it getting a little crazier out there? Thank you, Spencer.
Man.
Roth, what do you got?
You know what? Put this man on a train and drive him through Gotham because that is Joker. I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you said that the Joker was paying for a film like Parasite. That he was paying for
whatever.
Okay, so
Keeping movie theaters
I don't
open.
think that, honestly, I don't think that you can subjectively decide that one thing is superior, one piece of art is superior to another. But in the case of tonight, and only tonight, and for this question and the following four, I am empirically correct. Empirically, implicitly, all of the licitly's correct. And so was the Academy. For a very rare turn, they did not go for the film that campaigned the hardest, that paid to win. They did not go for the political move to sweep the Oscars. No, they went for the best movie, and that was Parasite. This was a historic occasion for a number of reasons. One, Lon fact-checked me on this, but this is a film that not only won Best International Film, which is the new name of the category, but also it won Best Picture. And my hand is making... I just want you to understand...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but Ryan is
by the way,
there's an Honest Trailer Commentaries frame up there.
hands down.
She's wrong. I'm telling you, she's wrong.
Hands down. This hands down is going.
Man, the Joker, there's a monkey on the wing! There's a monkey on the wing!
Joker wins!
This hand
Here's the
business is
story
going to play back later.
I'm a lovely lady.
Oh, hello. All right, almost there.
Listen,
Almost.
Ryan isn't even supposed to be here today.
No, he's doing an excellent
What is
job.
this, Clerks?
Who was very lovely girls.
Should I keep...
Okay, go ahead.
Hang on.
Sorry, you had momentum.
I
If
think,
we're only talking more about veganism, this wouldn't
yeah. I think
You wanted this. You wanted more movie fights. You got it.
Joker forcing us to concede right away and just end the fight. I'm just going to keep talking about Parasite,
Go
I
ahead.
guess.
Yeah.
As Jan... You do it, okay. I think the thing that you would notice
That's all
about
right, Ryan.
Parasite versus many of the other films is that they might have one or two kind of starring moments or aspects to the film, but Parasite is the one that really...
So, what is the lesser of two evils? Only Dan Murrell for the entire fight? Or the two windows with the Honest Trailer Commentary logo?
No, this is great, Dan.
Please vote in that poll. Put that poll up.
We're gonna do this weekend update bit.
I think if you consider the facts, you will notice that Parasite hit every single element of filmmaking. It is a film with an array of brilliant performances rather than just one. The cinematography is the star of some movies we may talk about tonight, but the cinematography in Parasite is also beautiful, as complemented by the editing, the script. It has a sociological message that speaks to its country of origin, but is also universal, as can be demonstrated by its multiple wins tonight. It's gorgeously directed. It is funny, sarcastic.
Lower the curtain.
Keep going, Dan.
Drop
You
that
ready?
sick ass
Oh, I'm
package.
ready.
We're gonna wrap. Dan and I are gonna wrap it up together. If you put it back on him instead of the curtain.
What's going on?
I think that what you can say about this film is that it has every element that you would want in a movie. It is moving, thought-provoking, scary, emotional. It is resonant, and it is downright hilarious in moments. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the movie of the year. So saith Dan Merrill. Dan?
Right. Yeah.
On the curtain now for Dan's argument.
Roth, thank you. Dan, you know what? The camera's in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Talk to us. What should have taken home the trophy for Best Picture?
All right. With due respect to my Roth / my argument, I am going to say it is my favorite movie of the year, 1917, which was the front runner going into the night. It was the film that most people thought would take Best Picture, and it's for a reason. I love Parasite, and I'm a fan of Joker as well. Those are two movies that I enjoyed. But I think when you look at the movie this year that encompassed what is possible with the craft of filmmaking today, right now, today, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well, and cinematography with Sam Mendes directing. It's not just a gimmick film, which it easily could have been. The performances in this film are brilliant, and just the fact that this is a film that you can't point to another film that's like 1917 on the level of filmmaking that was made.
Saving Private Ryan.
No, on the level of filmmaking that was made. There have been plenty of other war films, but the idea of taking the war film and bringing it into this way of putting you in that position of making it this one-shot thing, but not making it gimmicky, not letting the technical override the story, not letting the tricks of the trade overwhelm the performances, to put you in that situation. That is very difficult to do, and it's something that you need a deft hand at a directing, you need a deft hand at acting, you need a deft hand at cinematography, down the line to the sound mixers, to the craft, to everything. I really think that it is a unique film. It is a one-of-a-kind film, and that's the sort of film that I think that the Academy would want to recognize. What movie in this year achieved the peak of filmmaking in all aspects? And I think that's what 1917 is. And I'll start off the counter arguments. I think, first of all, comic movies aren't playing Scorsese's bill. Netflix is. Netflix doesn't need theaters. Netflix doesn't need comic book movies. Netflix doesn't need anyone to go to a theater. They can play their movies to empty theaters for weeks on end. It doesn't matter to them. They're in the awards picture, so they don't owe anything to the studios or to comic book movies. And Parasite, I mean, it didn't go for the political move. It's a movie about the current class struggle that goes internationally.
I'm out of the picture.
So I think that it does try to hit that zeitgeist, and it does try to hit that sociological importance and the societal importance. So I wouldn't agree that it's an A.
Wait.
Go ahead, Rob.
Just to be very, very clear.
Yeah.
When I talked about the politics of Parasite, I was talking about hello world.
Do we need to hit a pause button or something?
I was talking about the politics of the Oscar campaigns themselves. So just to be really, really clear about that, because I understand your argument, and I would agree, it's actually hitting on a number of sociological issues that I think is one of the strengths of the film is that it gives you an insight into the culture in which it's made, but it also translates and it's universal. What I'm saying is that it's historic because it didn't have to play the Oscar campaign game in order to sweep. In fact, the director basically eschewed the entire ceremony, and he was like, this is, I don't know, it's a local award show. He kept talking about being drunk. It won based on its merits. That's why it won. It broke barriers based on its merits, and I don't think that can be underscored. You're talking about films that have at their center a fantastic performance, but that's largely what it has, and then it's riffing on Scorsese from the 80s.
If it were just
and
a
film that has incredible cinematography.
If it were just a one-man show, so to speak, it wouldn't have had the same resonance that it has. And that's what I mean by box office and pay fealty to this movie. It's not so much just box office, though it made $1 billion. It's the cultural resonance that this movie had. You could not escape the Joker takes. They were flying. One way or another, this movie made you react viscerally. You either loved it or you hated it. And that, to me, are the most daring movies, the most important movies, the ones that echo out throughout the ages, are the ones that get you to feel something. Not the ones that you're just like, oh, that was pretty cool. Oh, that looked really good. Oh, I enjoyed that.
I don't think that anybody felt that. First of all, I don't think anybody felt that way, that apathetic about either Parasite if they saw it, or 1917, frankly.
I thought Parasite was good. I liked it a lot. I'm not upset with it winning Best Picture. If I'm looking for a Korean con artist drama with a creepy basement, I'm gonna watch The Handmaiden 10 times out of 10.
Okay, you are really, really, really missing a lot of the point of Parasite.
I'm not missing the point. I'm just saying I prefer that. It is about a social class Korean con artist movie with a creepy basement. How many of those are there?
Okay, fine. Then if I'm looking for a lunatic going crazy in an urban environment, then I'm going to go Taxi Driver 10 out of 10. If that disqualifies
let's run around the battlefield, I'm going to watch Dunkirk, or I'm going to watch Saving
that's the
Private
thing.
Ryan.
If you're looking for a movie,
there's always similar movies.
If you're looking for a movie like 1917, that's my point. You're not going to find
Birdman.
one.
I'll watch Birdman. It's just in a theater instead of a theater of war.
Birdman is nothing like 1917, and that's the point. Birdman had some extended camera shots, and it was a gimmick. It was a gimmick. What 1917 does is it uses a similar technique, but uses that effectively and puts you into the film. It doesn't pull you out of the film.
It was not a gimmick, but it was two things about 1917. One, it was uneven. I thought I was like at the edge of my seat for the first half. Can we spoil 1970? Wow, I'm close up.
I would.
Zoom out.
I don't know what's going on. That's
finish this, and then we're gonna go away for 2 minutes.
Finish this, and then we're gonna
finish
take a
this,
small
then we're
break.
gonna go away.
All right,
and then we'll restart. So 1970, very uneven.
We can't redo this.
I can't redo
No.
this. This is gold, Jerry. Gold.
Exactly.
Once he gets knocked out by the sniper guy, and then you just know. Or can I spoil it? I can spoil it.
No,
Yes.
no, it's in theaters. We can't spoil it.
Okay, I'm just saying, past certain points in the movie, you know everything's gonna be fine for somebody, because if they're gone, then what's the movie at this point?
But that's to say that the only value of a movie is in the ending. Like
Sure.
the most striking visual and I think like emotional beats are at the end of the movie.
Well, but my credulity was stretched at the point where he's diving into rivers and he's like evading 20 different German soldiers. Like, I just checked out at that point.
All right, let's move to our final thoughts. Okay, everyone. Spencer,
We're gonna take a break for 2 minutes. People can vote in the poll, and then we'll come back with everything.
Should we do our final thoughts?
what are our final thoughts?
So we do final thoughts when we come back, or what?
Final thoughts when we come back.
Final
All right,
thoughts when we come back.
Okay,
After
we're
this
gonna go
message.
away
After
for
this
2
break.
minutes. Hi, we're gonna go away for 2 minutes. Might make some slight adjustments.
I may not come back.
See you in 2. Preferable. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the party. Hoot, hoot again, Owl Nation. All right, so thank you for sitting through that. Hopefully you made yourself a delicious hoagie or something. And let's go to our final thoughts. Again, it was Spencer with Joker, Roth with Parasite, Dan with the 1917. Spencer, kick into the final thoughts.
Look, it's the movie with the best performance, as the Academy recognized, the best score, as the Academy recognized, and it was a cohesive picture. And the fact that you could do that in a comic book movie about social class in America is just mind-boggling. We're going to look back in 5 years and say this is the defining picture of the year, and the one that was by far, more than any other, the most resonant with audiences. I'm not saying everyone loved it. Some people hated it. In fact, a lot of people hate it, but it affected you, and that to me is more valuable than any other quality in a film.
Thank you, Spencer. Roth, final thoughts on Parasite.
Final thoughts on Parasite. First of all of what just happened is Spencer is to blame because it's Joker stuff. So, period, that's an argument against it. But also,
Watch the world burn.
It is a very uneven film. It is fundamentally an uneven film that sits at the center, a really great performance that was honored correctly tonight. It's well shot, but it's largely riffing on Martin Scorsese. And if you want to see this done right, to Dan's point, you will go back and you will watch Taxi Driver, and you will watch The King of Comedy, and you will see how a story like this ought to be told. This is incredibly uneven. It has really ham-fisted comic book stuff that does not belong tonally in the movie. It has really two-dimensional characters as it tries to play Arthur very complexly. They don't sit well against each other. It is not the best picture of the year. If you're looking for a truly cohesive film that hits every single mark of what a film should and could be, it is Parasite. And that is why the Academy recognized it for every single award that speaks to the film as a whole, because you couldn't give the ensemble cast an award, but you would if you could in this movie. You gave it screenwriting, you gave it direction, and you gave it 2 Best Picture awards. Again, 1917, which is a film that I really, really love, was awarded correctly. It was awarded for cinematography, which is largely its greatest achievement. There are other achievements in the film for sure, but if you're looking for the truly holistically Best Picture of the year, it is undoubtedly Parasite. They got it right for once.
And I think,
thanks, Roth. Dan,
I think that when you're looking for a Best Picture winner, you're looking for something that's going to stand the test of time. You both picked movies that are about class and society, and very much
that's
about
not timeless.
Very much about modern class and modern society. I don't necessarily think, who knows what it's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. We don't know what that's going to be. But we do know is that a story like 1917 that is a very human story. It is a story about survival. It is a story about fighting against the odds. It is a story that is told in a timeless manner that is very visceral and grabs you on a human level. And I think those are the kinds of films when you go back as an Academy aficionado and you want to go back and watch all of the older Best Picture winners, the human stories are the ones that grab you the most. The ones that connect you on a visceral level are the ones that grab you the most. The ones that are sort of made in the climate of the time, I think, lose some of their importance, which is why I really wanted 1917 to win this award, because I think this is going to be the same movie whether you watch it now or whether you watch it 50 years from now. It's going to grab you in the exact same way. These are all 3 fine films. Generally, movies that are nominated for Best Picture are at least good to pretty good. Sometimes you get a stinker in there, but I don't think it's any one of these 3. I do agree that Joker is largely about the performance, and I will agree that I think that movie was awarded correctly in that it is on Joaquin Phoenix's shoulders, and he does great, but there are things like the inclusions of the Batman stuff that are ham-handed and shouldn't be in there. And then with Parasite, again, I agree. I can't argue with the fact that Parasite was a really well-told movie, but I think that the uniqueness of 1917, the special craft and skill that went into it, I don't think it should just be recognized on a cinematography level or on a craft level. I think that if it were just those things and it did not grip you in any emotional way, then you'd be correct. But the fact that it has all of that craft and skill behind it and still grips you on a human level, you're not paying attention to that stuff first and foremost. You're in the story and you're following these characters and you care about them the most. I think that speaks to the power of the film, and I think that's why it should have come out on top tonight.
Thank you. All right, time. Lon Harris, what do you say we get factual?
Nothing incorrect. To Spencer's point, 4 of the top 10 worldwide grossers last year were comic book movies. Endgame, Far From Home, Captain Marvel, Joker. To Roth's point, she mentioned ensemble awarding the entire acting ensemble for Parasite. It did win the SAG Award this year for the best ensemble. First time that's gone to a foreign language film in many years. And then to Dan, a spoiler alert for 1917, the British do win World War I. Just to put that out there, just so everybody knows.
Well, now I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
That's the Allies' take.
Oh, Lon has to go ruin something with history again. Thanks, man. All right, so strong arguments all around. Spencer, I don't agree with your choice. Your argument, you had a strong argument about it being an evocative film. That does not necessarily make it the best film, and especially like leaning into hated it and like something that is that polarizing. It's very difficult to make the argument for Best Picture. Also, in your closing argument, you called it, and it was cohesive. I would hope so. Strong arguments about why it makes you feel, which is an important in a piece of art, but it didn't. At the end, it came down to 1917 and Parasite for me. And Roth, you had some really strong points in calling Spencer's choice correctly awarded, and then Dan's choice winning for cinematography. But then Dan came back with just how visceral an experience 1917 is, and like it really had my head spinning here. But at the end of the day, I thought Dan saying that Parasite was relegated to its time. I feel like to what Roth was saying and the themes of Parasite are universal things that stand the test of time. I mean, the haves and have-nots. I mean, you go through like the French Revolution, all throughout just histories and cultures. That is something that doesn't go away. And very close, but by just a whisker, I'm going to go Roth on this one with Parasite.
Bravo.
Lon.
I'm talking right into my microphone because I'm told that it's not working. I thought everybody had a good argument. I thought Spencer really, I wasn't really sold on the original argument that comic book movies keep Hollywood alive. That's not a good reason to give. That's a good reason to give something the Billboard Award for most best movie or whatever. I don't know if it's a good reason to give it Best Picture.
The MTV Best Kiss Award.
Yeah, but it did come around. Over the course of the argument, I think he did throw out some good stuff in there, especially about, it's the movie that supported that Joaquin performance. So some good, some bad there. Roth and Parasite, I think, did a great job of explaining why this is like an important award, a breakthrough award, why this is historically and culturally significant that it won. But overall, I thought the most just good arguments in terms of here's why I think this particular film was worthy of Best Picture. I think I got to go with Dan.
All right, so that's 1-1. We're going to the polls to decide. Ooh. Danielle, Radford, what do we got?
All righty, fresh out the poll box. With 58% of the vote, it is Parasite. 1917 with 33% of the vote. Joker stuff only got 8% of the vote, which is kind of surprising.
Wow. Surprising.
That's a little surprising.
Man, who's doing that voting? The Joker himself?
I just want to say that point goes to the fact that Dan was making the argument with me when we were having time.
Yeah.
I did give an assist. I should have just left you hanging out to dry.
So Roth got the point, but if there was an MVP of that round, it would be ventriloquist Dan Murrell. Yeah. Danielle, any fun comments in there?
Everyone's having a real fun time. Mostly, people are just super psyched that we're back. Everyone seems to think we're wasted for some reason.
I had one beer the entire night.
Just tired.
Yeah, tired.
I have not been drinking at all. Thank you, Danielle.
There was
all
a lot
right.
of cocaine, though.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's
okay. Yeah. So after one round, Roth won. Dan and Spencer looking to get on the board. All right. So you watched the show. There were fun moments. There were cool moments, touching moments, but there were weird moments. The question is, weirdest moment of the night, man. Let's get weird. Okay. Roth, what stood out to you as the weirdest weird moment?
I mean, there was a lot to choose from in this category, and I think we all have some really solid choices, but I'm going to go with the 1-2 punch of the Best Actor and Best Actress speeches. And the reason that I'm going to go with them is twofold. One, they're kind of like the J.J. and Ryan Johnson of speeches in that they were trying to undo each other, seemingly. Two, they were both very long and confusing, but I think saying opposite things, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more. And I think that's true. But the fact that I don't know is partially why this is so weird. And then also, it was unplanned weirdness, where some of the other moments that were really weird tonight, clearly the telecast producers were in on it and chose to do this. This is one of those beautiful moments that happens at the Oscars where it's like, it's a surprise to everyone that they're all crazy.
Yeah.
So Joaquin, I think, he took us on a journey. We started with your moment of nihilism for the night, and then we wanted to talk about, I think we went into PETA land. I think that's where we traveled, into the forests of PETA. And he's a big animal rights supporter, which I am too, but he was also talking about human rights, and then in vitro cow insemination, I think, or cow insemination. And then we went to cancel culture, which that's where I think it really took a turn and the movie took a twist in the form of his speech. It was just very, very confusing. So I think he was talking about a lot of things that are wrong with the world in his mind.
Yeah.
And then Renee came in and just started listing things that we universally like. I mean, literally, she could have just been like ice cream, pizza, orgasms.
These are a few of my favorite things.
Tax-free April. Like, she was just listing shit.
Yeah.
But it weirdly seemed to be undercutting what Joaquin said, where she was just like, no, everything's not broken. This is a list of all the things that we can agree that we like. We like firemen. We like kittens. We like stuff, you guys. It was like super insane. And they were both really long.
Awesome. Roth, thank you for that opening salvo. Dan Murrell.
Yeah, unplanned weirdness at an award show. Not that weird. What is weird is something that should be the most meticulously planned thing being so weird. And for me, it is the very first thing that we saw at the beginning of the award show, which is Janelle Monáe's number. And so, like the Zapruder film, I want to take this apart piece by piece. First of all, she walks out of the door, and within the first 10 seconds of the Oscars, we almost see a boob. right off the bat, we almost see a boob.
It's not weird. It's perfectly natural.
Yeah.
For the Oscars, like, if you were going to say, like, oh, what's one of the things that you don't expect to happen in the first 10 seconds of the Oscars, boob almost coming out would have been top of my list.
I'd actually put that on a.
So after this, we
double-sided tape.
We silently watched Janelle Monáe try to struggle to get dressed in Mr. Rogers clothes on a replica set of Mr. Rogers, maybe the 15th most influential movie to come out in 2019, silently as the music goes on. Okay, sure. Then she starts singing the Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. She goes out into the audience and then is like flirting with Tom Hanks and like puts her hat on his head, which is like some kind of cabaret move. But then she goes back up on stage. And by the way, what really weirded me out is I don't know what's going to come next, but I see jokers just standing in the dark silently. What the hell's going on? So then she goes into a second thing and there's like movie dancers behind her. Like, number one, it's a little weird, but number two, most of the movie dancers are from movies that were not nominated at the Oscars. So they have like the Midsummer dancers, the Queen and Slim dancers, the Us dancers, the Dolomite dancers. By the way, none of those films, save perhaps for Dolomite, should have dancers. You also have like 1917 dancers and Joker dancers. Not films that should have dancers, like jangly World War I uniforms. Not what I think of when I think of 1917. Then, so you got the dancing jokers up there spinning around. Then she goes back out into the audience for like some awkward celebrity sing-alongs, and like Leonardo DiCaprio looks like he just wants to get out of there. Brie Larson's like, what? And then just gives her a weird look. And then she lays down on the floor and like sings la 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 into the camera for 30 seconds. And then it's over. It was the weirdest thing. It was like the Rob Lowe Snow White thing where it's like, who approved this? What's going on? It got everything off on just this weird, awkward note. I don't know what the hell that was, but it was certainly weird. Very weird.
Janelle Monáe's salute to the year in movies. Thank you, Dan. Spencer.
You know what was weird? Eminem. showing up in year of our Lord 2020 to do Lose Yourself, a song from 8 Mile from, I believe, 2002? 2003?
I think it's like 18 years.
Were it a round number? Okay. 20-year anniversary? Is it the 2002? Yeah, if it were the 20-year anniversary of 8 Mile, sure. If he was back out there to do a duet with Elton John, okay. It came at the end of a salute to movies that took like pop songs and kind of recontextualized them. Lose Yourself was written for 8 Mile. That was a song from the movie 8 Mile. It was not 8 Mile. 8 Mile. It was not a song that they like found somewhere and then decided to put in a film. Weird.
Lon,
why did that happen?
Can you fact check if Footloose was written for Footloose?
Or maybe Footloose. But there were plenty of other songs in that montage, which I thought the point of was here's how movies have taken songs you love or have made these songs that you love from other artists.
All right, fight it out, y'all.
Let me tell you the two things I'm going to expect on an Oscar ceremony. Number one, an actor gives a long rambling speech. Number one on the list of things I would expect. Number two, pointless montage with past Oscar winner coming back to perform hit song. That's happened so many times. You bring Barbra Streisand. If it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it would have been Barbra Streisand singing the way that we were. Bringing back somebody who won an Oscar, by the way, was not present the night that he won the Oscar. So in a way, it's a redemption story. Eminem gets to come back and perform the song on the Oscars, which he didn't do when it won the night.
Lon, fact check, where was Eminem the night his Oscars handed out?
It's not, that happens all the time on the Oscars. They bring somebody out and you're like, oh, what are they doing there? They're just celebrating Oscars. That's what they do.
It just didn't fit. And Dan, I will say this to all, you're saying, oh, it was planned weirdness and so on and so forth. The Oscars definitely said, Eminem, we want you to go out and perform Lose Yourself. I truly believe that they asked Janelle Monáe what she wanted to do, and she said, I would like to honor the movies that didn't get represented. I don't think the Oscars was saying, like, hey, let's put up all these things that didn't win.
No, she came out, she went to the audience and said, we're here tonight to celebrate all the great female directors. None of them were nominated.
That was Janelle Monáe talking. That's her talking.
She said, we are here tonight. This show is to celebrate.
And the Midsummer Review.
Exactly.
It was a show to celebrate the Oscar show that didn't recognize any of the people that you talked
they
about.
Said, Janelle, do
Roth, I'd love to hear some rebuttal and some thoughts from you.
I gotta say, Dan, I'm gonna make a case for why your moment is not the weirdest, but is in fact the greatest moment of the night. And it's because this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Oscar singularity. This is the moment that the show becomes so aware of itself and so aware of how out of date and old-fashioned it is that it goes so far as to recognize all the films that it is not
anti-Oscars musical within the Oscars.
There is an anti-Oscars musical within the Oscars. It does not get more Joker stuff than that. It does not get more self-aware
than that. We can't just throw Joker stuff around as like a reason for anything.
I will also say this about that number.
It's also Janelle Monáe.
She's also super great, and it's like her singing is always a delight. I don't care what she's singing and who's dancing behind her. It's fun to watch her open a show because she's awesome.
That doesn't make it not weird.
But it's very...
It smooths over a lot of the weirdness.
It's not weird when you consider the source. It's Janelle Monáe doing what she does, and she's sort of subverting expectations. She's making a bold statement, and she's also, and this is the Oscars acknowledging that as much as they are there to celebrate certain films that night, there are plenty of other films that came out this year that are equally deserving of a dance number.
And if this was a Janelle Monáe concert,
but not limited
I think
to,
it was.
This was
Dan, that's what I'm saying.
It's not a Janelle Monáe concert. This was the Oscars bringing, like, recognizing films, and like, if they want to say, like, here's the movies that we didn't recognize, they can do that. But to do it by like putting them in costumes and having them bat dance behind Janelle Monáe after she tries to seduce Tom Hanks, before she like puts a microphone in Leonardo DiCaprio's face and he goes, it's not just the number. It's everything involved with the number. Nothing clicked. Nothing. Everything was the weirdest possible thing.
I think that the dancing was really good and the singing was really good.
It was a very entertaining moment.
There were just Thriller dancing behind. There was someone in a Queen and Slim outfit. Thriller, like, I can't think of a movie less appropriate to put Thriller dancing behind Janelle Monáe than like a really like complicated, deep thing about like race in America and the cause of celebrity. And they're back there doing this on the Oscars. What the hell's going on? Again, pointless musical numbers and weird, like long rambling celebrity speeches. Like that's the Oscars. If you think that's weird at the Oscars, then the whole Oscars are weird.
Well, those speeches though were particularly weird this year. I have to say that. Yes, rambling speeches are to be expected, but you don't usually get two back-to-back
Roll this into your final thoughts, Roth.
Two back-to-back speeches from two of the biggest winners of the night. Saying very confusing mixed messages in one case, in Joaquin's case, where he's touching on 92 cultural issues, none of which connect to each other, but essentially painting a portrait of the world being in chaos, and then, which is apropos for the movie, fair enough, but then also ending it in like, we all deserve a second chance.
Well, he ended it in a beautiful message
yes, he did, to his brother.
Yeah.
He had one beautiful moment in that, but then Renee Zellweger quickly comes in and just simply starts to list things, I think in order to encourage us to believe that we all can find common ground in, again, ice cream and orgasms. And nothing made sense. And she also seemed to be undercutting exactly what Joaquin said. I have never seen two weirder speeches as set back to back that way versus one of the most subversive moments in Oscar history. The singularity, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment when Oscar became self-aware, that opening number. And then a beautiful tribute to a song that was not recognized in its day.
It was recognized in its day on the Oscar.
But he wasn't there, man.
Well, he was here.
There.
And finally, 18 and a half years later,
he gets his moment.
Eminem gets his moment.
When you get your moment, you own it. Dan is next, and it'll come right around to you, Spence.
With Renee and her series of listing things, she was listing heroes. She was listing people that people admire. And the reason that it may have seemed random is because I actually like the fact she was listing people across various different types of interests, various different types of class. She listed Venus and Serena Williams. She mentioned people in uniform. She mentioned first responders. She was mentioning, I think she was trying to say that I was portraying somebody who is admirable, who was a hero to some, just like these people are. And she listed people that I think could be across class and race and age and gender and you know, all that stuff. People would be like, you know, yes, I admire that person, and relate that to who she was playing and who Judy Garland was, both to her and to Hollywood. Joaquin, I mean, what did you like? Did you think Joaquin was going to give you every one of his speeches this entire award season? Like, what the hell is he going to say? He's talking about private jets at the Golden Globes, and he was talking about, you know, meatless burgers, and like, of course he's going to like kind of go weird and rambly. Like, that's him. That's always been him. So I don't think it's that unusual for him to say that out of character, or that's not out of character. As far again as Eminem goes, a pointless montage with the past Oscar winner performing a hit from the past. That's an Oscar trope. It's been done before. If it hit anybody as strange or odd, I just think it's because Eminem, you know, we're in a more modern time where different kinds of songs have won Best Original Song. I don't think it would have felt out of place if Elton John had come out and done a Lion King song.
No, that would have made
great. A lot of sense.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's the 21st century's version of that. It's just that we're not used to that. We're used to it being Elton John coming out and singing Lion King
there.
songs.
He could have done it. I'm sure.
Whereas
it's the 24th anniversary of that one.
With Janelle Monáe, you had a planned opening number that inappropriately paid tribute not only to some of the movies that were nominated, but mostly movies that weren't nominated, and a number that was like, if you want to say it's the Oscars being self-aware, that's fine. I think it's the Oscars like sending a weird mixed message as far as like, you can't say that this night is about celebrating female directors, none of whom are nominated, because it's not. If the Oscars want to be self-aware, then they can be self-aware when it's time to nominate things. But you can't just say that you're here to celebrate things that you're not. And then just, again, the overall oddness, bringing celebrities unwittingly into this. Everyone was caught a deer in the headlights. It was a weird way to start the show. It started everything off on a weird beat. It was just one of the more bizarre Oscar numbers that I've seen in quite some time. So that's why I picked it.
Spence.
Well, Dan, I think that there's some overlap, but there's a big difference between the people who put together the Oscars and the Academy. I think that the people who put together the Oscars went to Janelle Monáe and said, will you perform for us? What would you like your theme to be? And she probably said, I want to shout out all the female directors and all the movies that didn't get nominated that deserve recognition. I'm going to work them into my number, which, by the way, was great. It was not 2002's best UFC entrance song, Lose Yourself, performed by a guy. I didn't even mention his weird beard dye. His weird Eminem's beard is still weird to me. It never looked right. It still doesn't. And then the cutaways. This is always uncomfortable when somebody puts a mic in your face and makes you sing. But the cutaways to Scorsese and Billie Eilish and all these people who were like, what is happening? Why is Eminem here? It was a weird choice. And yes, you talk about there's always a musical montage and then somebody comes out and performs. But fundamentally, Lose Yourself had nothing to do with what the montage was. The theme of the montage was pop songs used in movies. This might as well have been part of the score. It was very bizarre. That's why it's my weird choice. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, did you have one more?
The speeches were fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Speeches were fine.
Thank you, Spencer. Lon Harris, what do you got to say? Get factual.
I was tasked with a few facts. So, Footloose was, in fact, written for that film. In fact, Kenny Loggins wrote 2 songs for that film. He also wrote I'm Free, parentheses, Heaven Helps the Man. I couldn't tell you anything about that song. No one knows about it.
Yeah, B-side.
Let's hear it for
Straight
the
up
boys.
B-side.
Also, written for
But that's not
that was not
Kenny Loggins. Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, let's give the boy a hand.
That's not a fact. Eminem, I also was tasked, why did Eminem not show up? I found a quote, and I quote,
Yes.
I just felt like I had no chance of winning because, when I heard I was nominated, I thought that was for actors. I was not sure what exactly Grammy or Oscar meant, what certain awards meant. I was not sure what they meant, so even MTV Awards, all that stuff, I just didn't know what awards meant, and this particular award, I didn't go to the show. I just felt like I had a snowball's chance in hell of winning.
You man,
So that was his...
I rebuke that.
Yeah, look up a thing, Eminem.
And
We had Google.
And to Dan's point, Renee was listing people who, like Judy Garland, she said, inspire people through the generations. So she mentioned Neil Armstrong, Sally Ride, Dolores Huerta, Venus and Serena Williams, Selena, Bob Dylan, Martin Scorsese, Fred Rogers, Harriet Tubman, and then in terms
Don't
of groups,
redo the speech, dude.
He just did. He just did.
first responders and the troops.
All right.
All right.
Orgasm.
All right.
Not mentioning orgasm.
Lon, keep it rolling. What did you think of this round?
I thought this was a great round. I think a lot of this comes down to what you think of as sort of weird for an Oscar ceremony, because all 3 of these things were very weird.
Yeah.
But rambly speeches from people winning Best Actor trophies, I didn't think that was that didn't seem to me like outside of what you'd expect from the Oscars weird. I thought the fighters did a pretty good job of talking about that. Ditto Janelle Monáe. I think weird musical numbers with inappropriate dancing about movies that maybe don't serve that. I feel like you kind of expect that for the Oscars, but I thought the best argument came from Spencer as to why the Eminem performance was outside of the realm of what you'd expect from a big award show like this. So I'm voting for Spence.
Thank you, Lon. That's one for Spenny. And you know what? I actually have to agree. I thought you made some great points, Roth, in targeting those messages of the speeches, and my head was spinning. But rambly speeches, yes. And and Dan, an opening number of the Oscars, those happen. And actually, talking about films that weren't nominated being targeted, I was in an opening bit for the year Borat came out. I was on a beach with 5 other Borat impersonators with a fake mustache and a Borat bathing suit on. If anyone can find, I don't know. It was horrific. But we all looked around the room with the same Billie Eilish look when Eminem came out, and I think Spencer, you really nailed it. That it kind of came out of nowhere. So I agree with Lon. Spencer, you get the point. Danielle, what does the internet have to say?
Alrighty, well, it has been decided, but the internet had its way to be able to affect the thingies. 56% for opening salute to movies, 31% for Eminem, 11% for acting speeches. A lot of people in here are not appreciating our Eminem slander, by the way. Many more of them are, but a lot of them are definitely like, I stand forever. So, you and Devin Sawa. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, so it is Spencer 1, Roth 1, Dan looking to get on the board. Moving to question number 3. Oh, what was the most fun moment of the night, you guys? Listen, there was a lot of fun stuff happening, but only one can stand as the most fun moment. So, Dan?
You know what I think is fun? I think self-deprecation is fun. I think self-awareness is fun.
Yeah.
Something I didn't think the opening number had, but that's okay. That's why, and of course, if you follow me, of course I'm going to say this. Cats. You get Corden, you get Rebel Wilson out there. There's two ways that you can go about it. You can be a sourpuss, no pun intended, about Cats failing, or you can go out there and own it. And that's what they did. They came out, they dressed in the Cats outfit. They said, as members of being in Cats, we know how important visual effects are. That's what's fun. That's what I like to see about celebrities. It shows that they don't take themselves too seriously. It was actually funny. A lot of the awards patter was not good this year, particularly between the presenters. This was like, first of all, just a funny visual gag. It was funny to sort of like acknowledge that, yeah, we were in this movie that, by the way, was supposed to, like, before it came out, was going to be nominated for Oscars, but now it's a punchline. They showed that they owned it. And even like, I have the lowest tolerance in the world for James Corden for many reasons. First of all, mostly being because he's an awards thief, but the pawing,
karaoke.
the pawing at the microphone bit, again, it showed that they owned the fact that they were in a massive embarrassing misfire, and I think that made the show fun because it goes to show you that it's not all about being self-important. Sometimes they can laugh at themselves.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Round of the horn to Spencer.
Well, Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph can do no wrong in my book. They proved that again tonight. I don't know how I feel about hostless Oscars, but when they were on stage, I felt the warm embrace of a double host right there. I felt like I was in good hands, and like I just knew they were going to deliver, and they did. And that is fun when you can let yourself go and say, you know what, they got this. They're going to make these punchlines land. This is going to be funny. And it was. It was brilliant. They did 2 awards. I laughed out loud both times. That's more than we can say for most of the entire show. That qualifies as the most fun for me.
Thank you, Spencer. Roth.
You know, never, I think, in history has there been a moment where the glitterati of Hollywood and the everymen like ourselves have been more in sync than in the reactions to Eminem coming out and doing Lose Yourself 18 years later. And I think one of the most fun moments of the night for me was watching my confusion be reflected in your face, Spencer, and your face, Hal. You, Dan, you were there, Danielle and Lon, but then in the faces of icons like Adele Dazeem, said exactly like it's spelled, which was another great moment. Billie Eilish, so confused. Her face alone, I think, needs to be memed. And then I think Scorsese's daughter, debate, question mark, anyway, she's daughter, all through the audience. We were one with these icons of Hollywood in confusion, in shared confusion. And I think that is a very fun moment of the nights because it's raw. It is organic. It is very real. It is unplanned. You ask LeBron James to come out and play basketball, and he's going to play the shit out of basketball. You ask these 2 comedic geniuses to come out and do a performance at an award show, that's what they're going to do. There's no surprise there. Yes, it's glorious. It was funny. I laughed. I thought they were the best presenters of the night. You want some people to come out in Cats? That's funny. They're Cats, but the fresh moment of connection between us and those who seem so far above. You can't plan for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Mix it up, everybody.
The only thing I didn't like about Cats was I thought that they took a swipe at, pun intended, the actual people who worked their ass off on that doomed production for visual effects. That's a lot of people. That's like 900 people that worked on that movie that were like, oh yeah, thanks for rubbing it in, stars. Like, what a way to throw the blame on us. That's as much on Corden and Wilson as it is on them. And look, I don't know this for a fact, but I know that James Corden has... Actually, I'm not gonna say it. It's too hot for movie fights. No. He did lots of bad things after Cats came out to lots of people off camera or animals. Who's to say? I'm just saying that it was gonna be. Never.
Jack should have moved to have it stricken from the record.
I'm just saying I can't laugh at him because I know that he takes himself so seriously. So I was like, all right, yeah, you're doing the minimum viable thing to make me like you again.
What did he do to animals?
I know it was gonna be a joke in poor taste, and I stopped myself, and now I'm just making it. But
Lon, please see if James Corden is on record for hurting animals.
James Corden strikes me as a friend to all animals.
Yes.
Okay.
Just gonna put that out there.
And then the other one, what was your pick? The reaction shots?
The reactions to Eminem.
They were good, but I've seen better reaction shots.
You haven't seen better reaction shots when the unfolding bewilderment of that entire audience that matched the unfolding bewilderment in our room. You and I both agreed that Eminem was insane. You just got that one.
But here's what we do, though, with those reaction shots.
Not that we don't love M, because we love M.
We project our own feelings onto those shots, because again, it's not like those weren't the shots that, like, when they put the camera in front of you and, like, you know, like, if you're sitting there with, like, and they've done psychological studies of this, if you show someone a picture of them, just someone sitting there with a blank face like this, and you're seeing something confusing, you project your own confusion onto them. Those are like, that's like Scorsese. That's, you know, there may have been one or two that were just kind of like, oh, Eminem, but like for that instant that they catch them, I think a lot of it is you're projecting your confusion onto someone who's just sitting there in an award show. These things are endless. We were like 2 hours into the award show at that point. Martin Scorsese's probably sitting there thinking like, oh boy, Eminem. So, oh geez, what do I have time to go to the bathroom? How much longer is it? You know? He's not sitting there going, what is this? You know, I feel like a lot of it is us projecting our feelings onto these stars who they have no idea they're on camera. They're just sitting there through this endless award show. I don't think they took a swipe at the VFX artists. Again, they weren't just like, oh, here's for all the crappy effects in our movie. They were saying that it's as much a critique on Tom Hooper's approach to the VFX, his approach to filming the movie. There's so much there, and again, like, everyone needs to be able to laugh at themselves. That's what made it funny. Wig and Rudolph, for the first half of theirs things, I was with it, but they did the thing that they always do when they're hostless, which is they bring comedians out for a 2-award bit, and the second one went on that weird a cappella thing or whatever they were doing. That was
great. That got like a standing ovation.
That went on way too long. It got uncomfortable for me, if I'm being honest. If it was just the first time, then I'd be like, oh, yeah, that was funny. But they overstayed their welcome. They gave them way too much to do. They gave them too much of the show to carry. I got the bit about the acting. That was fun. But then they kept going and kept going and kept going. And I felt like they overstayed their welcome. Roll this into your final thoughts, Dan. With the Cats thing, it was short. It was succinct. It was self-aware. It was self-deprecating. People understood. They got it. You're acknowledging the fact that, yes, we're here to celebrate Hollywood, but we're also, looking at this very kind of embarrassing, but also, at the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal that we were in this kind of flop, this bomb. And I think with Wig and Rudolph, it was an overlong comedy bit that overstayed its welcome, that went on a little bit too long. And again, with the reaction shots during Eminem, a little bit, I think of it as dunking on people who, number one, may not have been feeling the way that we think that they're feeling, and number two, didn't know that they were on camera. I don't like it when they do that. Like, if you're going to put someone on camera, I think you should have a camera there so they know that they're being on TV. Instead, like, we're kind of putting our own interpretation of what they're feeling onto them, and I don't think that's necessarily very fair. I think the funniest bits are the ones that, you had 2 stars saying like, hey, we're going to make fun of ourselves, we're going to have fun in the moment. Everyone was in on the joke. Spencer?
I mean, Wig and Rudolph to me were a oasis of humor in a desert of unfunny. There were so many people that tried to go for jokes and didn't quite land. Even comedic titans like Will Ferrell and Julie Louis-Dreyfus, they took a hard job, which is to have a bit that works, 2 bits that work. I thought they did. Obviously, it's subjective. I didn't think it went on too long. I think the audience agreed. It got one of the biggest pops of the night, and certainly one of the biggest laughs. So it was the most fun I had during a otherwise funless show. And yeah, reaction shots. It's a GIF. It's GIFable. I'll have fun when someone posts that in response to something I say later. And what was your pick, Dan? What'd you pick? Cats. Yeah, Cats. Again, they threw. Do you want to say it's not just the visual effects? Sure, they threw Tom Hooper under the bus. It felt like, oh, we're having fun with it, but everybody else, like they're who's really at fault. So it didn't quite ring as fun to me.
Thank you, Spencer. Roth?
I would just say with Cats, it was just kind of a one cat meow. They really didn't do much with the bit. They dressed up in like poor face makeup, and then they talk about dunking. They dunked on their colleagues. It's true, and like it was just sort of mean spirited. And then what I would say about Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig is like they just made everybody else look bad. Would be my main complaint about them. Like they just came out and made the rest of the show look bad, which is like you want to be a team. You want to pass that ball. a little bit and be a team player. But here's what I would say is I think when you are at the Oscars, you know a camera is potentially on you at all times. And that's really not dunking on them, and it's really not in mean spirit. The reactions are the things that we gift. Those are the things that we talk about. Those raw, organic moments are the things that last. We're gonna gift Tom Hanks getting the lights back up at the end for Parasite. We're gonna gift Margot Robbie being upset that people are being taken off stage for her film for Bombshell, and we're gonna gift those reactions of befuddlement and confusion because that is exactly what they looked like, and they were relating to us, and we were relating to them, and in that moment, we were in a shared universe, which is pretty freaking rare when you're talking about Hollywood and the rest of humanity. And it was funny because it was weird. And M is great. We love M. We stand M. We stand Stan.
Thank you. Time. All right. Lon, facts?
2 facts, real quick. That was Martin Scorsese's daughter. That was Kathy Scorsese, who I think would be big reaction right next to him. And also, James Corden, I looked it up, 9 Emmys. A shocking 9 Emmys
Wow.
for James Corden. That's a lot of Emmys.
That's a lot.
Oh, yes.
He's definitely
indeed.
stolen a few of those.
I know where two of them came from.
Those are your facts.
Like you look like Bob Barker with the mic. You got the nice skinny mic.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
It's just a wide.
just so it bends towards my face. He's got a long.
Oh, yeah, he's got that.
Well, you're a
long
real
skinny
pro.
thing.
But I would ask you to help control the pet population. Please have your dogs and cats.
Always a good call. Got a big
Yes.
laugh from Ryan right there, Lon. Okay.
That's why I do it. That's why I'm here.
For that sweet Ryan laugh. Great arguments all around. Though these were 3 delightful. I was in the room while we were all watching this. We were all delighted by all these things that we're talking about. I thought Dan had a great, insightful take on Roth's moment, and just we can imbue those moments with anything that we're thinking and just take it out of context, because we don't know, like, if they just like got a text message or something and what mind state they're in. But I agree, we all shared in the weirdness of Eminem. I'm so happy I got to share that with you, Roth. But Dan, I couldn't disagree with you more about the acapella bit going too long. That was delightful, like the whole thing. But I love your choice of the cats, and Wig and Rudolph. That they were very fun. I mean, I would love to see those 2 host. But as far as like the one pop, like Dan, I think Dan hit. What we loved about that was just so satisfying when those 2 came out. And I don't know, sometimes comedy, you poke fun at something. I didn't feel like it was too mean-spirited. I think they were cat bathing themselves in what it was. I gotta go with Dan and that cat song. Just when they entered, it was like, yes! So I'm going with Dan. Lon?
To Spencer's point, I liked Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph. I thought they were fun. I also didn't feel like it went on too long. It felt like the acapella bit was like, oh, something's happening. This is funny. But if it comes down to those presenters versus the Cats presenters, it kind of knocks Spencer out. I think the Cats presenters were the funniest introduction, celebrities coming out on stage of the night. Just seeing them in those costumes was a great moment. So it really came down to between Roth and Dan, and really was sort of like an interesting balance, like, one is the most fun planned moment, and then one is the most fun, like, weird, spontaneous thing that happened that kind of brought us all together. And so even though I thought the Cats moment was really funny, the only time I left my seat during the actual Oscar broadcast, I think I have to go with Roth, just because I like the idea of the most fun moment being a community moment. It was a moment that we all kind of shared together and that we will all continue to share as the gifts get shared and as this gets recontextualized on social media. Oh, I would add one more fact. Billie Eilish was born in December of 2001, less than a year before Lose Yourself.
Oh my God.
I'm going with Roth.
Okay, so it's 1 for Dan, 1 for Roth. Danielle, where we at?
Alrighty, fresh polls coming in hot. With 51% of the votes, it is Cats presenters. With 28%, it is Rudolph Wig presenters, and 19% reactions to Eminem. You guys can see it, so I promise I didn't rig this poll. I know you're all going to assume that I did. But yeah, so that is it. Everyone, Many people don't seem to get the cat's love, but I'll explain it to you if you give me enough time, Internet.
Okay, Danielle is offering to explain it to you. Hit her up, follow her, and she will talk cats with you all day long. All right, we got a 3-way tie, everyone. We're going into question number 4. It's 1-1 and 1. So here is the question.
They did turn off the air conditioning.
Change. Yes, we're in here. It's late. No air conditioning. This is for you. Yes. All right. We're asking you to if you could change one result, what category would you change? All right, and back around question number 4, we'll start with Spenny G.
In the true spirit of Joker stuff, I'm taking it away from Joaquin Phoenix. He's a fine Best Actor choice, but I thought he deserved it even more for The Master. I think this is a make-good award for his best skinny, frightening weirdo role, which was in that film. I think that we're going to look back and say, you know what? This was Leonardo DiCaprio's best role. This was where he showed the most vulnerability, where he allowed himself to be a buffoon, to not be the cool heartthrob, to be a faded movie star, to kind of embrace some of the truth of where his career isn't going but could go someday, and how it's gone for some of his peers. So for him to do that was probably the most bold choice from him, and I think showed a range and a depth and a true honesty that I didn't know he was capable of. And I think that will be 5 years from now the consensus Best Actor and Best Role of the year.
All right, he wants to go Joaquin to Leo. Roth.
I am going to go for the animated category, not because I didn't like Toy Story 4, because I did. It was a fine film.
Toy Story does not have a friend in you?
It does have a friend in me. It was a great friend in me. And there were a lot of great...
I wish you could have been there. We were all imitating Randy Newman earlier. Roth, please continue. Sorry.
So I think that in that franchise, the third film, they're all great, but the third film is the masterpiece of that one. That's the one that it has an Academy Award. It deserves it. Lon fact-checked me on that. But it deserves it for that. But in this year, there was a lot of other great kind of original films. And the one that I loved the best and I thought deserved to win was I Lost My Body. And this is a film that's operating on a number of levels. It's really beautiful animation. It's got a really rich storyline. It is a sentient hand at the center of the story, among other things. But it's a story of loss, and I think that it really works for an adult. I think it is a film that you could show a child, but one of the biggest reasons that I would say it should win is that the greatest thing that the Academy Awards can do is shine a light on films that otherwise might not be seen. And this is one of those films that I think objectively was the better film and objectively did deserve to win. And objectively, it was the better film on every level. But also, it's a film that could have used the boost from the Academy, and Toy Story 4 absolutely doesn't need that.
All right, the Academy boost. Dan?
I didn't pick a performance or an overall film category because I think it is heavily subjective. I went with a craft category, and the one that I went with was best visual effects. And as I argued earlier, while I respect the hell out of 1917, and I believe that it deserved the awards it won and more, I would actually take that Best Visual Effects award and give it to Avengers Endgame for several reasons. First of all, the idea that there are two major fully digital characters in that movie that are integrated completely into the film, that have a lot of heavy lifting, in Hulk and Thanos with Josh Brolin, that I don't think you think of as digital characters, particularly Thanos, who's such a great villain. You see several different versions of him, the way that they, Spencer, you always say that motion capture shouldn't go to the actor, it goes to the visual artist. Well, the visual artist crafted not just one version of Thanos, but two in this film. So just on that level, I think is an impressive achievement. Then you add the fact that you have a movie that's jumping through time, traveling through time, you're recreating other movies, you're stitching together different pieces from different sets from different times, green screen, practical, bringing casts together, people that were never in the same room. That, again, alone on by itself, I think is worthy of achievement. And then even just that final sequence, that massive battle, the fact that you're bringing all these characters together, half of them are digital, half of them are real, you're blending the rest, adding that to the epicness of the movie itself, all blended together. I think that it is not just impressive, and I don't think it should just be given for one or two sequences, but throughout the film. I think there's a lot of effects work that you notice and a lot of effects work that you don't notice going on in that film. And I think that I really would have liked to have seen that work, really the crowning achievement for the MCU, awarded in this category over a film like 1917. That's not to disrespect the work that was done in 1917, but I think really to pay tribute to the work that was done for Endgame.
All right, care to mix it up, everyone? Please do.
I mean, I never forgot that Thanos and Hulk weren't real. I mean, that never tricked me.
You may not have, but a lot of people did.
Okay,
you never considered Thanos to be just a character in the film.
Well, sure. To that effect, I think that the real test of it was, did I notice the effects or not? And by that metric, 1917 passed with flying colors. I couldn't even tell where they cut, except for when the guy got knocked out. But otherwise, I couldn't even tell where they hid the cuts in that movie. The whole film was a visual effect. To me, that totally deserves it. And I think that because it was an amazing mix of utilizing practical and CGI, that that it deserves the award, which, as I learned right before we started filming, is for both.
Yeah, and this is legit. Like, I legitimately feel this way about this one. Is that, Spencer and I were talking about the moment in the film where the plane crashes, and that we literally didn't know what part of that was a practical effect and what part of that was CGI. And I think that's sort of the point. Like, you were so fully immersed in the experience, and the work is so seamless that you genuinely don't know the difference. And I think that really it speaks to the level of craftsmanship that's happening in that film. And that's actually, I think, much harder to do than work where it's a character that it's okay a little bit that you can tell that it's CGI because we know that it's an alien. But for you, Spencer, I would just say that you undercut the very argument that you made at the top of this program when you said point blank that Joaquin Phoenix was correctly awarded because he was the best performer.
Or did I?
And that was part of what made Joker the best film. So I think we just, you just completely undercut what you said at the beginning of this film.
It's a new round, Rob.
When, for the animation category, I Lost My Body is a movie that you can use to teach kids about loss, but more than that, about the idea that they're supposed to put pressure on themselves about who they're supposed to be in the world. It's a movie that works both for kids and adults in that level. It's the better script, better performances, and it's a daring film. It's a film that, should it be awarded, will encourage other films like that are out of the box, that are trying something fresh, that are innovative. And frankly, we just need that. We need that to be awarded, and we need to see more of that in this town.
But I think you can make that same argument around the film
and
that
the
I
world
would have.
It's French.
I think that you can make that same argument for the film that I would have picked, which is Klaus, because that is a 2D animation film. I think we need more of that. I think that also teaches kids about loss. So you're confirming
that the wrong film won Best Animation?
No, I'm confirming that I think that you picked a category where almost any one of those nominees could be just as worthy as any of the other ones, because Toy Story 4 has also a lot. Like, I think that there are many worthy nominees in that category, so I don't know why that particular one I would say, like, oh, I Lost My Body definitely needed to win in that category, taking it away from Toy Story 4. I think you had a lot of good choices. For Best Actor, I can't think of another movie this year that relied solely on one performance than Joker. And you go back to when Roth and I reviewed that film, the one thing that everyone was talking about coming out of that movie was Joaquin Phoenix and how brilliant he was. Even people that didn't like the movie were saying how great Joaquin Phoenix was. With Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Leo's great, but so is Brad Pitt, so is Julia Butters, so is Margot Robbie, so is that entire ensemble cast. They all feed off of each other. I don't think that's Leo's best role. I think Wolf of Wall Street is something that highlights his performance specifically more than this one. I think that Joaquin absolutely should have won Best Actor. But again, for best visual effects, it's not just about Thanos. And if you're arguing about invisible effects, there are plenty of those in Avengers Endgame. Things that you take for granted. Things like Captain America fighting himself, a physical impossibility achieved partially through visual effects and integrated seamlessly into the film. People's costumes in that film are CGI, are visual effects. You don't even think about the fact that they're not wearing these costumes, that Spider-Man's not wearing a costume. There's invisible visual effects in every movie. I think that 1917 is a great blend, but I also think a lot of it, number one, was done through editing. When you talk about hiding cuts, that's cinematography, that's editing, that's a lot of the other crafts that aren't necessarily visual effects. I think that Avengers Endgame relied so heavily on having stellar visual effects work and nailing things, shots like Captain America catching that hammer and getting that animation correct, not taking you out of that moment. It allowed the emotional moment to live and breathe in that film, and the scale of it. The scale of it was so massive for them to deliver on that scale, to deliver digital characters, digital backgrounds, practical effects, things that you don't even think about. I just think that accomplishment is mind-blowing. It's staggering to me, and that's why I would have awarded it.
Final thoughts, s'il vous plaît, Spencer Gilbert.
I'll just say Toy Story 4, it's not fair because it's Pixar and they have, $100 million budgets, but it's gorgeous. It's a beautifully animated film, and that's always going to be rewarded. You can't penalize it because it had, the empire behind it. It was beautiful, and animators take note of that. The animation for the Toy Story franchise has gotten better with every installment, and they managed to do that again. And then again, for me, Joaquin, it's all about this. To me, was a make good for his previous body of work. I think that while I thought his performance in Joker was incredible, I thought Leo's was better for what it was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that if you're looking at Joaquin's gangly loner oeuvre, it's her, it's the Master, and then it's Joker. So that's my spiel.
Roth.
So I remind you that you at the start of the show said that Joaquin should have won, and I agree with you. He should have won. That entire movie rests on his performance, and I don't think that you are giving it its due in this new round by saying that it's not. It's the exact same as these other performances. It couldn't be more different. He's a very different character than the one he portrays in Her, and a very different character than the one he portrays in The Master. This is. The best thing about that film is his performance, is him wrestling with his mental illness, is him wrestling with his own morality. That is very much the best, strongest part of that film, 100%, and he deserved to win. It was the best performance of the year. DiCaprio was in a film great, but he was in a film that was more of an ensemble film. It doesn't 100% rest on him, and I agree with Dan. There are other performances from him that are equally strong. He's a great actor. I would say in terms of the animation, my counter to both of you is that, Dan, what you said is that you agree with me that Toy Story 4 wasn't necessarily the one that should have won. There were a number of films in that category that could have won that were equally strong, and I am positing that the best of those, for a number of reasons, was I Lost My Body, but it was also because it's an opportunity for the Academy to encourage innovative filmmaking. Not only that, I genuinely believe that this is the strongest, most interesting film in that category, the one that has the best craftsmanship across the board, including beautiful animation. And finally, I would say that in your category, Dan, 1917 was the one that should have won. Very often in these categories in the Academy Awards, they pick the flashiest film, they pick the most CGI. They didn't do that this year with makeup or visual effects. They chose the ones that actually were used the best to immerse you more in that world and help tell the story on an emotional level. I could not tell where the visual effects were in this film, where they began and ended, and that is the point.
Thank you, Roth. Dan, final thoughts.
I think that both of your arguments are qualitative arguments. They're subjective arguments, which every argument is to a certain degree. But the reason I point that out is that yours is about the quality of one performance over another, and yours is about the quality of one animated film over another. Again, I think that any one of those films could have won. It's not so much about the fact that another film could have won. It's the fact that I don't see why that particular one is overlooked, or why that should be taken from Toy Story 4 and given specifically to I Lost My Body. I think that you can look at the work in Avengers Endgame, in my opinion, on a quantitative level, not qualitative, but on a quantitative level, just as far as the amount of work required, the number of different kinds of visual effects that were required, from character animation to clothing to compositing, green screen. Yes, the visual effects in 1917 were used to enhance the existing world, and that is one great use of special effects. However, I also think that to create an entire world, to create an entire realm, and not just just one, but several across a 3-hour movie, I think that is also a really impressive type of visual effect that 1917 didn't necessarily flex and create in the creation of that movie that Avengers Endgame did. So when I say it's a qualitative argument, I think that the movie did all the things that 1917 did well. I think that Avengers Endgame did well. And on top of that, added a lot of other visual effects work that should have been recognized by the Academy.
Thank you, Dan Murrell. Good arguments, everybody. That is time. Lon, can you get factual, my man?
So for 1917, the team created a digital plane and crashed it into a digital barn, but then they had a big physical replica of the plane on the set, and they actually blended them together. So
Ooh,
it's
like the Waterworld stunt show.
So it's exactly. They borrowed techniques first explored for the Miami Vice Action Spectacular Waterworld stunt show. Only other one is we discussed sort of Toy Story winning. So the original Toy Story was nominated for original screenplay, original score, and original song, but the only Oscar it won was a Special Achievement Oscar for being the first feature-length computer animated film. Toy Story 3 won Best Animated Film and Best Original Song for We Belong Together, also by Mr. Randy Newman. And it was also nominated for Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, and Sound Editing.
I have a fact question for you. Spencer said something to the effect of it was like an achievement award for Joaquin Phoenix. Didn't he win for Walk the Line?
Let me check.
I don't believe he did. No.
No?
Reese Witherspoon did.
I could be way off base.
He was nominated. He was definitely nominated.
Lon, I may very well be sending you on a fool's errand right now.
I'm looking it up.
How good was Toy Story 3, you guys?
Oh, the best.
So good.
Yeah,
This was the first Oscar for actor Joaquin Phoenix. He was nominated, did not win for Walk the Line.
Gotcha. Great. Lon, why don't you roll this into your picks here?
This was a really strong round. I sort of agree with everybody. Like, DiCaprio was definitely my favorite of the nominated performances. I loved I Lost My Body. I thought Roth is totally right that deserved it more than Toy Story 4.
There goes my phone.
But ultimately, I thought I felt like I heard so much from Dan about what specifically Endgame brought to the table that he didn't feel like 1917 brought to the table. And I sort of agree with his final statement that the others felt more like, well, I like this one better. I think this angle on this one is cooler. But Dan felt like he had the most overall argument for why this should have replaced that. So I'm going with Dan.
I agree with Lon in as much as the arguments were great all around. Spencer, part of me wasn't sure if you just wanted to like pull up the mask and say like, now I'm arguing against the Joker. So that called that into question for me. So it came down to Roth and Dan for me. And this is a really hard one. Dan, I feel like in making the point you might have helped Roth in calling Toy Story into question, saying you thought other films could have taken that victory. But then you really, with the quantity of just the sheer immense amount of visual effects in your movie, that is so strong. But Roth, you really spoke to me in saying choosing this smaller, road less traveled, and encouraging innovation. That is like, I haven't seen I Lost My Body, but you make me want to see that with your argument. So because of that, just slightly, I got to go with Roth. So it comes down to Danielle. It's between Dan and Roth here.
All right, freshly refreshing the polls. And wow, with 74% of the vote, it is Endgame visual effects over 1917. 23, I Lost My Body over Toy Story, and then 2% Leo over Joaquin.
Not a popularity contest.
All right.
Avengers was amazing. The visual effects were amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dan was saying about they whisk around different planets and all these characters, these different it's doing so much.
Yeah, and I was, and as Dan was arguing, because I thought Dan made a fantastic argument, I was thinking about Justice League, where I was like taken out of the movie because of some poor visual effects.
I know Spencer was throwing water out of you don't forget in that you don't remember that there aren't big purple aliens, but Thanos does really come alive as a fleshed out three-dimensional character in those movies, and you do kind of forget that you're watching it through this artifice. It feels like Josh Brolin.
In defense of Spencer, we're playing a game. And we gotta
you gotta
pick something. You gotta make an argument.
No, everything you say at the movie fights table is what you think.
I think we all think the effects in Endgame were amazing, and that.
And I love Spencer bringing up the master because Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix just titans of acting clashing. I love.
Who's the master?
No, I really dig the master. All right, so Dan pulls ahead. He's got 2. Roth and Spencer each have 1, and it comes down to question number 5 here. Of the nominees who did not win in the acting categories, who will be the next to win an acting Oscar? Who will be the next to win an acting Oscar? And question number 5 will start with player number 2, Roth.
I chose Cynthia Erivo because for a number of reasons. First of all, if I weren't here tonight, I would be watching The Outsider on HBO.
Oh, hell yeah.
She is like the best character in that movie. I think she is... What she has going for her is a number of things. One, she is good in everything that she's in, whether the work deserves her or not. She is excellent, and I think that's the mark of a really, really, really powerful actor. 2 is that she's incredibly versatile. She just basically, I think she EGOT'd tonight during her performance. I think she just instantly EGOT'd when she was singing. But she's really, really versatile. She's very, very different in each role that she plays. She is an incredibly inherent vulnerability that I think is attractive, and she's an up-and-coming actor, and I think that means that probably the next big film that's sort of an Oscar contender, which people are going to be wanting her for, directors are going to be wanting to work with her because she's so talented, is bound to be the thing that catapults her into both a nomination and a win, because she's sort of got, you know what I mean? She's like taking the steps to lead there.
All right, some thoughtful points from Roth. Dan, what do you got?
I am going to go with a Best Actor non-winner tonight. I don't want to call him a loser. He's a Best Actor non-winner tonight, Adam Driver, for a few different reasons. Number one, he is a young actor who has, while still being a young actor, paid his dues. He's put in solid yeoman's work. He's put in good performances in movies like Silence, and then he's been nominated also. He's been nominated, and this is my second reason for why I think he's next to win. I think all of these picks are going to win at some point. Why he's next to win. He's been nominated the last 2 years. So he's got stacked nominations. You see this all the time. The Academy nominates somebody 1 year, 2 year, and then the second, maybe the third year, they win. They win the award because the Academy's like, oh, it's his turn. He's been nominated the past couple years. He's nominated for BlacKkKlansman last year. He's nominated for this year for Marriage Story. If he's nominated next year, I can see the Academy saying, it's his turn. And then thirdly, there is this thing that happens every once in a while where if there's a particularly strong year where there's more than one actor or actress that should win, they'll do like a makeup thing the next year. So, for example, in 1999, American Beauty, Best Actor. That same year, Denzel Washington, Russell Crowe, both had Oscar-worthy performances in The Insider and The Hurricane, both nominated. The next year, Denzel Washington won for Training Day. The year after that, Russell Crowe won. Or I think I flipped those, but Russell Crowe, then Denzel. You basically had 3 worthy performances, and the Academy the next 2 years said, okay, we're going to give you the Oscar now. I think you're going to see that this year because Joaquin was an unstoppable force. There was no way he was not going to win that Oscar. That was never in question. But I think you have a lot of the Academy members who watched Marriage Story and watched Adam Driver and probably said, oh man, if it was anybody but Joaquin, we would probably vote for him. So I think the combination of that, the fact that he's paid his dues, the fact that he's been stacking nominations, the fact that maybe he had just as worthy a year as Joaquin this year, but you just couldn't stop that train, I think that means that next year, he's going to make a movie. He's going to be great because he always is, and the Academy's going to decide this is his year.
All right, Driver, stacking the noms. Spence.
Saoirse. I'm the conductor of the Saoirse train.
Got that Saoirse inertia.
Leader of the Ronin Empire. So I was asking for a good name for Saoirse Ronan fans. That was my favorite. She's so great. Don't you just cheer for her when you see her on screen? I love her in Brooklyn. I love her in Little Women. She has an indomitable spirit. She's young. She's not by no means peaking, but is on the upswing. Where like she's talk about paid her dues. She's been acting since she was like a wee lass.
Atonement.
Yeah, and now she's getting like big, meaty leading roles. So I think that she's intensely likable. She's super sweet and a great actress. She was the best part of Little Women, and I imagine she'll be the best part of many films to come.
All right, mix it up.
Okay, the best part of Little Women, and by a hair, because Saoirse Ronan's fantastic. I love all of these actors, is the truth. But by a hair, it was Florence Pugh who was my runner-up.
Oh, she's going Pugh crew over Ronan Empire.
Well, she made Meg likable, which is a tough hill to climb.
She made a very unlikable character likable. She makes bold choices. I would be arguing for Florence Pugh if I
Hashtag Pugh crew.
If I didn't already have the correct winner, which is Cynthia Erivo, who, when I talked about work that didn't deserve her, I was referring to Boss Baby: Back in Business, the TV series. So everything else she's did has been great. So I would argue, Dan, that had tonight it would have gone to Pesci. Is who I think it actually would have.
Well, that's supporting.
It's supporting. Sorry. Never mind. Take out my Pesci argument and let's go back to Adam Driver. Adam Driver. I think the issue with Adam Driver is that he's almost oversaturated at this point. I think that Hollywood's going to take a break from him. They're going to take. I love him and I think he's a really great actor. And I think he's probably going to go do a lot of really weird independent films like Patterson that he did a number of years that not a lot of people see that are great that we will see and recommend to you. And then I think he's sort of going to hang back. He doesn't like all this attention, so he's not going to do the campaigning that's really necessary to get an Academy Award. I think at a certain point he'll probably bubble back up again because he's a journeyman. He'll be working forever. But I don't think it's the next move. I think all of these people are in the position, like you were talking about, to have been like, they got attention, they got a nominee, and then they're going to get the win. She is a dynamic player. I think she's out there to win. I think she's out there, a force of nature. You could see her on the stage tonight. Magnetic. Nobody could take their eyes away from her. So I think the next move in which she's in a film that has the possibility that she's going to do the correct campaigning, she's going to get out there, people are going to be rooting for her just because she does have that dynamism, and she's going to take the win. Saoirse's another journey woman who will have lots of chances, but she's already had a number of chances so far. Sometimes people like what's new and fresh.
So here's what I think with Cynthia Erivo. I agree. She's incredibly multi-talented. You just mentioned she's on HBO. She did the Boss Baby thing.
She's going to EGOT.
The Boss Baby thing. But here's the thing with somebody who's as multi-talented as she is, because it's not just winning an Oscar, it's who's going to win an Oscar next. And the only reason that I would put a strike against Cynthia Erivo is that she does so many different things that she could go do an HBO limited series that could take her out of, quote unquote, the Oscar race for a year, or she could go do a Broadway show for however many months that could take her out of the Oscar race or out of one Oscar season, an Oscar season where one of these other two choices might be in contention, because Adam Driver and Saoirse Ronan are largely now still working in film. I think that Cynthia Erivo, the fact that she's so talented, that means she has so many options for her to do so many different things.
But she did that
doesn't
this year and was nominated.
mean
She did a limited series and she was nominated this year.
But that might not be the case next year. Next year she may do another limited series and a Broadway run. What I mean is, like, it's nothing about talent. It's more about opportunities and who's going to get there first, which is what the question is about. And I think that there's two different methods with somebody like an Adam Driver or a Saoirse Ronan. Adam Driver, I think right now, has got the hot hand. And the Academy does this a lot, where they have an actor, they nominated once, twice, third time he gets the Oscar, he's got the hot hand. They're playing the hand. They want the new guy. And Adam Driver is establishing himself there. I think Saoirse is establishing herself as the journey woman. She has been nominated since Atonement. I think over 10 years now. She's been nominated several times. I think, sadly, what you're seeing with Saoirse is she's the dependable nominee that's going to get nominated a lot, and then in maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years she's going to get the award because that's her time, because the story becomes about the fact that she's been nominated so many times, and she's the Leo she just hasn't won yet. I'm banking on the Adam Driver hot hand thing with the Academy, and I'm betting with Saoirse it's going to be, the narrative is that her time is going to come someday, and then when she gets it, but I think Driver's going to get there first, and I think the only reason to get there before, this will be my final thought, I think the only reason he's going going to get there before Cynthia is because she has so many different avenues to be talented that I don't necessarily know if Oscar-winning movie is going to be number one on her list every single year the way that it is with Adam Driver and Saoirse Ronan.
Spencer, any thoughts regarding Saoirse?
I would echo Dan's point about Cynthia, and I would only add for Adam Driver, I don't know. He's kind of at a fork in the road in his career. He had Marriage Story, didn't win an Oscar. He had Star Wars Rise of Skywalker this year. He could just be like, I want to be a movie star at this point. He could make popcorn movies for the rest of his career and star in them and just be a global box office success. And that could be where his career goes, and he'd never be up for an Oscar again. So that's a risk with him. And I think that Saoirse, she is the journey woman, and you can't win if you don't get nominated. So I think that she's has the best chance of anyone.
And is that your final? Make this your final thoughts. Great. Roth?
My final thought is that as far as Saoirse is concerned, I agree with Dan that it's probably going to be a 7-year-long story, and then the story is going to be how she keeps getting nominated, and eventually she does win, and it'll be this triumphant moment. You can just see that playing out. I disagree with you guys about Cynthia. I think that she's in a position to do theater in which she gets her peers really respecting her, and then she's in a position to do a limited series in which she is reaching more and more people, so we are rallying behind her, and then she's in a position to get herself into an Oscar-nominated movie, and then that's where the win comes in. She is just she has the kind of magnetic dynamism that makes you want to see her win. And she's also just phenomenally, ridiculously dripping with talent. And when it comes to Adam Driver, I really do think he's going to take a step back. He's been really reticent around the press. He's been really reticent to do a lot of this stuff. I don't think he wants to be in this fishbowl much longer. I think he's going to do the opposite of what you just said and pull way back and do movies that are frankly too small to bubble up to the attention of the Academy Awards for a period of time.
All right. Wow. Lon, take us to the fact zone.
So we should point out, Boss Baby Back in Business is a Netflix series, not a film. In fact,
I said it was a TV show.
Cynthia Erivo only made 3 films. Harriet was only the 3rd film she's ever been in. Widows, Bad Times at El Royale.
Nice.
And then Harriet. Only other fact, Adam Driver has 1 movie already on tap for next year. It's the English language debut of, I'm going to murder this guy's name, Leo Carax. Carax. He's the guy who did Holy Motors, which is very well regarded. This sounds like a very weird movie. It's called The Net. Adam Driver stars as a provocative stand-up comedian named Henry McHenry. So there you go. Maybe he'll be nominated for that.
Like the Joker.
Okay, so if I was going to go to Vegas and place a futures bet on one of these people to win based on these arguments, who would it be? All great arguments. I feel like, I don't know, Dan had the most just tangible, quantitative thing that I could see there with the stacking the nominations thing, and then he brought in the empirical evidence of Denzel and Russell Crowe. So I love all these actors. I want to watch everyone. I love Lady Bird, and I love Cynthia Erivo and everything I've seen her in thus far. But just on Dan's facts, I got to go Dan. Lon?
Slight disagreement. I thought great actors, all good arguments from everybody. I thought Roth had a very good final comment that sort of poke some big holes in both Dan and Spencer's arguments. I thought with Dan, I absolutely agree. I feel like this was Adam Driver's big year. He did Report, he had Marriage, so he was doing a ton of stuff. I feel like now is going to be his time to do like a play or to make some weird indie stuff like this Henry McHenry thing he's working on. And the same with Saoirse Like Inertia. I feel like she's gonna be part of the Oscar ceremony every few years. We know she's gonna do a period piece, or she's gonna be great in some indie thing, like A24 thing, and she's gonna get nominated, but she's gonna be one of these, gets nominated every few years, and then finally, when she's like 55, she'll win, something big. So yeah, I think out of all of these, Cynthia Erivo is like super hot right now, has all this momentum, and I feel like she's probably the next one who's gonna capture it. So I'm going with Roth.
Okay, Danielle?
Alrighty, refresh. Coming in at 58% of the polls is Adam Driver, 33% for Saoirse, and 8% for Cynthia Erivo.
She deserves more than 8%.
Yeah, she deserves more than 8%. That's okay. You guys go see Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh yeah,
it's
and
really
Widows too.
And Widows. Go see Widows.
3 movies. And they're all good.
And then whatever Boss Baby thing that was.
Back in business.
When Adam Driver is holding his Oscar for playing Henry McHenry.
This is Kylo Ren Oscar, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Dan takes that point. It is 3-1. That means we have a tie. We're going to the tie break.
Oh, man.
Oh, wait, what?
Roth, go, please.
Just do the thing with him.
It's the latest
fine.
I've been up since I had a kid.
I'm so tired.
Okay. I do not have...
The tiebreaker is...
The clock ran out.
Clock ran out.
Clock ran out. I do not have the tie break or any of the speed round questions.
Just pick a speed round question.
I have to find them because I was not.
It's fine. Just do the
How about
speed round.
the tiebreaker is who should be in the speed round?
It's all right. Here's my argument for why Spencer should be in the speed round.
Oh,
Hot off the presses.
Here we go.
all right. Okay, here it is. If you were fighting in a war, which British character actor would you be most relieved to run into?
Can we just say
just any
Colin
of them?
Firth broadly? Doesn't
Firth?
matter.
Man, Colin Firth.
British actor.
Any British
Name a woman!
character
Name a woman!
character
5,
actor.
4, 3,
Hugh Grant. Your pick is
1.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant. Okay, Firth, Grant. 20 seconds on the clock for Roth.
Oh, you're throwing this, sir. I mean, it's really clear to me because if you talk about Colin Firth, if you look at the movies that he's been in, just Kingsman alone, he is the person that you want fighting by your side because not only does he know how to kick ass with an umbrella and this pen and his pinky and anything else that's available, but he will be polite, sir, about it. He will be a friend to you. He is a handsome man, and that for me does mean something.
Time. All
Sorry,
right,
can I
20
get the-
seconds for
the-
Spencer.
can I get the question one
Hugh
more time?
Grant. If you were fighting in a war, which British character actor would you be most relieved to run into?
Well, I'm just going to interpret this as I'm in a war movie because if I run into Hugh Grant, I know I'm in a delightful rom-com. This man is probably there through some happenstance of fate, and he's probably about to ask me to dinner and give me roses. We're about to fall in love on the English Channel or some such nonsense. If I see Colin Firth, I know I'm probably the guy that dies so Colin Firth can give an inspiring speech.
No, you are the person that he saves so that we know that he is a hero, sir. That's exactly what happens. Colin Firth doesn't let you die, and you can't switch the genre just because you know you lost with the actor you chose. You're in a war! You are in a war!
Spencer, 10-second rebuttal.
That was very high-pitched.
I don't know. Hugh Grant, he's not like, he doesn't scream war to me, so I feel like I'll really lighten the mood, and they'll be like, war's not so bad. You got people like Hugh Grant out here, huffing and chuffing with their Britishness.
Time. All right.
I vote Spencer.
Let's go to Danielle Radford.
Oh, both of them pay me. I don't know. Both great arguments.
Are they? They were.
I'm sorry, Spenny, you can't suddenly make it a rom-com.
If Hugh Grant's there.
I concur. Roth, you are moving on.
Yes.
Correct answer, by the way, Rowan Atkinson. Blackadder.
Good
Blackadder
answer.
goes
You do the
forth.
speed round.
I'll whisper in your ear sometimes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
We're
So
gonna do this
that does
together.
not count as a point. So Roth has 1. Dan has 3. First person to 5. Roth, you need a strong run here.
Just 4. Just 4 in a row.
Just 4 in a row.
4 in a row.
Sure.
You got this.
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
We've definitely had.
Okay, first question of the speed round. Again, shout out your answers, and then you get 20 seconds in the order you answered, and then 10-second rebuttals. Better fashion trend, man brooch or cape?
Brooch!
Okay, we heard brooch, and you said cape.
I say cape.
Okay.
Cape.
Now it's the game.
All right, you got 20 seconds to elaborate on brooch. Dan, you got cape on deck.
Yep.
We have seen capes for years and years and years, ladies and gentlemen, but this is the year of the brooch. We had 3 iconic brooch moves this year. It was Timothée Chalamet at his most Chalamet with a man brooch. He first brought in the brooch, and then you know what? Elton came out and was like, boom, Chalamet, I got your back, brooch. And then we cut to his beautiful, lovely husband, David, and you know what? Community brooch.
Yeah.
Marriage
Okay,
brooch.
community marriage brooch. Thank you. Dan.
sorry.
Elton John's been wearing brooches
I don't
longer
know
than
what
I've
this
been
is.
alive, and Chalamet pinned a little piece of metal onto a windbreaker. That's not a fashion statement. You know what says take me seriously? A cape. If somebody walks into a room with a cape, I'm listening to that person. I'm looking at that person. A cape is a statement. Capes have been on superheroes, but the fact that capes are coming back as accepted high fashion, yes, please. There's nothing I want.
They're not coming back. They never left. It's never been a capeless Oscar. That's never been a thing that's happened. But this is the year that we introduced the man brooch. You want to know how I know? Because Danielle knew to count for capes, but I pointed out the brooch.
Time. Dan.
Wow. The 90s were a capeless time. The capes have come back. They're in our Star Wars movies. They're in our Oscars. Brooches, there have been jewels and ornaments have been wearing on jackets always. Always.
Man
Capes
brooch.
are now taken seriously.
Time. All right. So the question was better fashion trend. Capes have been around. They never left. Man brooch. I got to go Roth on that one. Lon.
Yeah.
Just for our audience's sake, I saw a few questions in the chat room. A brooch is like one of those jewel attached to your clothing,
It's a fancy pin.
like a thing like a grandma you would would wear. That is a brooch. Having said that, based on these arguments, I feel like, and I don't know a lot about Oscar fashion history, but I did feel like capes were very prominent this year and have not been in years past. That's why we asked the question in the first place. I'm going with Dan.
Okay, we got one for capes, one for brooch. Danielle.
Oh man.
To clarify, capes and man brooch.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, of course. Because capes are gender neutral, as we all know. So, yeah, this is really capes had such a huge year this year. They did. They were everywhere. Coleman had one on. I'm really loving that big cape energy. I gotta say, when Soft Boy, Berries and Cream, Timothée Chalamet wore that man brooch, I feel like it's the beginning of something that we're going to start to see. This was his Billy Porter's tuxedo dress, and I think we're going to start to see more brooches from here on out.
Big.
All right.
So quirky.
Roth takes it with the man brooch.
Yeah,
and
that vest really caught on. Remember that dumb vest he wore?
and brooch stocks on the NASDAQ spiked.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.
Broachcom going crazy.
Yes. All right. It's 3-2. 3-2. Question 2. What should have been the 10th Best Picture nominee?
Waves.
Waves.
The Farewell.
Waves and The Farewell.
Ooh, both good movies.
Waves and The Farewell. We heard Waves first. Start it off. 20-second start when you speak. Roth.
Waves is legitimately one of my favorite movies of the year, and not only because it is a completely unique film, it's basically like a palindrome where you start out following one protagonist, and then the movie turns on its head. The camera work mirrors that really beautifully, and then you follow this other character as the protagonist through the end of the film when it all sort of comes full circle together and is the story of this family.
Time.
I'll agree that Waves is a very unique film structurally, but I think with The Farewell, you had such exceptional acting by the ensemble, exceptional directing by Lulu Wang. The screenplay was great. I think that The Farewell hit on all cylinders in every single category that makes a film great. And for it not to be recognized as one of the best pictures of the year, I think is overlooking so many amazing craftsmen and so many people on every aspect of filmmaking.
I could say the same thing about Waves, only that I would say that it was far more emotionally impactful. Not only that, if you're looking at Sterling K. Brown is in this film, delivering one of the performances of the year, completely overlooked, definitely should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
And I think Awkwafina should have been nominated for Best Actress. I think that Lao Shu-Jiang should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I just think that there are so many elements of the film that are exceptional that in a movie-to-movie contest, I think.
Time. All right. Lon Harris.
Great films, great arguments. I felt like Roth with the talking about the innovative structure and what made Waves different. I just thought that was a little bit more compelling than anything I heard from Dan, which was sort of general, like everything about this movie was great, good performances. I really liked how Roth sort of attacked it right away in terms of like what set Waves really apart, so I'm going with Roth.
All right, that's one for Roth. Danielle.
Yeah, I feel like both fantastic movies, and I really liked it. I felt like on the opposite hand, I thought that Dan did a really good job about saying, what it was, because, there were great performances. This was a great movie, front to back, from attacking it from all angles, the way that it looked, the screenplay, the acting, Awkwafina being taken seriously as a person. So I'm going to go with Dan.
And so that's one for each. And I feel like Dan hit more points, but Roth was impacted by the feeling of the movie. By a hair, I got to go Dan. It is 4-2. 4-2. All right, this is game point for Dan. Question number 3 of the speed round. Which cat most deserved an Oscar? Will accept.
Ian McKellen.
Okay.
That was the cat.
The last
That's
part
not
was
the name of the
it's
cat.
an actor or a cat.
We'll accept
okay.
actor or cat.
their cat.
Okay, Ian
Plus
McKellen.
the theater cat played by Ian McKellen.
Yes. Dan?
I am going to go with Old Deuteronomy, played by Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench.
A very strong choice.
All right, Roth.
Cats.
20 seconds begin when you speak.
Judi Dench was there for a paycheck, and it could not be more clear than the weird stare to camera at the end of the movie. Ian McKellen, of all the cats, and I will quote you, Dan Murrell, in our review, he came to be a cat, and he was a cat, sir. There was no cat that we deserved more on our very best day than Ian McKellen's cat. That is the only person that was there to actually act in the movie. Sorry.
Dan.
You just brought it up. It's a good performance, but part of a performance is knowing what movie you're in. Ian McKellen was not in the same movie. Judi Dench got the tone of the movie. She brought the prestige, and you actually do take her seriously, despite the fact that she's looking into camera, despite the fact that she's wearing a big cape. You buy her as the leader of this pack of cats, and that is Oscar worthy. Ian McKellen, you don't take seriously.
No two actors in that movie are in the same movie. There's none of them that are in the same movie, and that includes Judi Dench, who is clearly phoning it in. Ian McKellen came to play a cat, and he played a goddamn cat.
Wow.
Judi Dench wouldn't phone in a pizza order. Judi Dench comes to play. Ian McKellen was there to screw around. He stood out. He took you out of the movie. Judi Dench was there to sell that damn movie, and she sold the effing movie.
Roth reached into my brain and pulled out exactly what I was thinking, that no one knew what movie they were in. That was such crisscross applesauce going on in that movie, and she sold me on Ian McKellen, so that's one for Roth. Danielle?
Oh, I'm sorry, Roth. You lost me when you said that Judi Dench sold it in. She did not phone it in. She had been waiting her entire life to play this movie, and in fact, I believe that she is the reason why they were able to get the top talent that they did get. I appreciate your passion. Ian McKellen is the cat of my heart, but Judi Dench came to play, and Dan argued that point very well. So I got to go with Dan.
1-1. Lon.
Yeah, I think when all is said and done, I fundamentally disagree with Roth that Judi Dench was phoning that in. That moment that Judi Dench looks into camera, it's shocking. She looks deep within your soul. It's deeply unsettling. It is little. I jumped out of my seat. That means that the intensity of that moment alone, I have to go with Judi Dench. I have to go with Dan.
Okay. Hey, Roth, thanks for the memories, but Dan, you take it. Dan, you are our Oscar Movie Fights winner.
I would have yelled at Ian McKellen so fast if she hadn't.
And that moment is shocking. Lon and I were next to each other.
It is unsettling. It's unsettling.
It's upsetting.
The most jellicle of all moments. Dan, do you have an acceptance speech?
Oh, I'd like to thank the folks at home who voted. I would like to thank my wonderful opponents here. I was actually more pleased with almost every winner this year. I feel like I could have gotten so much more behind a lot of these in past years. I'm very happy with Parasite winning. I'm very happy with all of the top awards, really. There were very few, even visual effects. That's the one that I really do. I would have given that to Endgame, but I'm not going to sit here and, stew about 1917. It was a very uninteresting show, but I was actually quite happy with most of the winners. So it was just fun to sit here and do this again.
Thank you, Dan. Roth, thoughts?
Yeah, this was fun. I think like you, Dan, we all come in here and know that these are subjective movies and we love them all. And honestly, I wasn't really displeased with any of the winners this year either. But it's fun to screw around with you guys and talk about cats.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Spencer, thank you for getting a babysitter and being here.
The baby's mother is happily with this.
Oh.
But yeah, I wish the Oscars were worse so that this show could have been better. But, we worked with what we got. They were fine. This was fine.
Spencer, are you forgetting the beginning of this show?
Oh yeah, that was a wild
insane.
ride.
That was the weirdest part of the Oscars. Was
But they could have shit the bed more. Lon and Danielle, awesome. Thank you for holding it down on the couch. Thoughts, shout outs.
Be back here in exactly 12 hours when we do this again.
12-hour turnaround.
Less fighting.
Boy.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm sweating so much under these lights. I'm just hoping.
It's very warm in
They
here.
cut the AC around round 2.
Thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, Ryan, for holding it down and taking care of our technical
Bravo.
difficulties.
Heck yeah,
Good
Ryan.
man, Ryan O'Toole in the booth. Thanks again for watching. Hoot, hoot, everybody. Bye-bye.
I don't know why I'm clapping.